Welcome to the One Inside, an Internal Family Systems podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Sollenberger. I am super excited today to have my friend Anna Christine Seiple on, who goes by AC. Anna and I are in a group together. We've met a couple of times, and she has a book out that is so good. And I was joking with Jeff that I was like, I haven't slowed down enough to read the book, but the book is called The Sacred Art of Slowing Down. And I really wish I would have slowed down enough to read the book, but I'm holding it and I bought it and I've been moving it around my house like I do when I'm like, oh, I really want to read this. And I've just been moving around my house. AC is a licensed counselor, retreat leader, and researcher. She loves cultivating healing spaces that honor the entirety of our embodied beings. She holds 2 master's degrees, one in clinical mental health counseling and a second in ancient languages, and is currently, you have to come back because we have to talk about this. She's currently working on a PhD at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, exploring conversations between ancient contemplative practices and mindfulness interventions. I just think that sounds like I'm like, I want to go get my PhD in that. Her writing, along with free integrative resources, can be found at her website, acseiple.com. Welcome, AC, to the podcast. Tell us where you are in the world and what you see when you look out your nearest window, and give us all the details.
Yes. So as you said, I'm working on my PhD at the University of St. Andrews, which means I'm currently in St. Andrews, Scotland. And that means currently it is dark outside my window. Um, but if and I can still kind of see because of a street light. But right outside the window in front of me, there are these really it's almost like a little sunroom. They call it a conservatory here. But what we would probably call is a little sunroom. And outside of that is a little garden. There's one of my favorite trees. If you know what a purple smoke tree is, I have loved these the last few years. I learned about them when I moved to Knoxville several years ago. So it was a really pleasant surprise that our rental here just happens to have one in the garden. And right now, it is all glorious shades of red and orange. And it's half still on the tree and half off the tree. And it's beautiful.
I'm muted. I didn't mean to do that. Is it fall there?
It is, yes, yeah, so it is
Okay.
fall, and it's a really temperate climate. So, because it's literally right on the North Sea, like, if I walked that way 15 minutes, I would walk into the North Sea, and because the sea is, just right there, it regulates the temperature a lot, and so
Mm.
it hardly ever snows here, but it does get colder, and even though it doesn't get that cold, the wind will make it feel very, very cold.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah.
yeah.
What's been something surprising about living in Scotland?
Oh, that's a great question. Many things, but the thing that just popped in my mind is I didn't realize how few trees there are in a lot of places of Scotland, which along with that, I didn't realize how heavily deforested Scotland has been. So when we think of a
Oh.
lot of like iconic Scottish scenery where there's not trees and you're just kind of seeing the open spaciousness and it's beautiful. All that used to be forested. And so it's actually been a really big adjustment for me where I lived in Tennessee before this, North Carolina before that, the Midwest before. I've lived a lot of places and they've just all had a lot more trees. And so
Mm.
to just get used to that of, oh, I need to seek out like wooded, forested spaces. Um, yeah, it just wasn't even something that crossed my mind.
Hmm. Um, that's very interesting. Yeah, and I think I live surrounded by woods, and I think that's something I never really notice until I go somewhere and I'll be like, "There's not a lot of tree," and it's always a little bit shocking, like, "There's not a lot of trees here."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't think about what are my tree needs before I move somewhere new. But
My
now I
tree
know that
needs.
there are tree needs.
I love it. I mean, I have an ocean needs, so I'm always like, "Well, I can't live there because there's no ocean." So I have ocean needs, but tree needs, I like it. So tell us about the reason why you needed to write this book, The Sacred Art of Slowing Down.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was not someone who, to be very honest, I was not someone who had been writing for a long time and hoping to write. That's not really what this was born out of. I had a dear friend, many people, but one friend in particular who honestly was kind of like badgering me of you need to write a book, you need to write a book, you need to write a book. And her main encouragement, and what's fun is this friend is actually who first told me about your podcast many years ago. A little full circle moment there. But, with my 2 degrees, she was just thinking the unique perspective that you have would be able to offer something that's really hard to find, in one space. And originally, I was really trying to bring my 2 degrees together, much more explicitly. I was really trying to write from a very, like, heady thinking brain place, and after having pretty much a full manuscript draft, I just had a really honest moment with myself, realizing I think this would be a good book, but I don't think it's the book I'm supposed to write right now, and just had some curiosity about writing something that would be a little more vulnerable, a little more personal, of, like, my own experience of formation of connecting with my body and tuning in and tending to parts and depths within that I'd been really disconnected from, and the kind of building blocks for that being needing to slow down and different things in life that slowed me down. Um, Now I'll also say what I would have loved to have titled this book, and as you know, when you work with a publisher and you're joining together, if you're trying to meet different needs. So I did title it The Sacred Art of Slowing Down, but that was after my first title was vetoed. I really wanted to call it All Parts Sacred, an invitation to slow down, tune in with the body, and tend to the soul. And those are the three movements of the book: is slow down, tune in with the body, and tend to the soul. So yeah, a lot of it is just a reflection of what I've experienced as a human first and trying to lead with that rather than like my thinking brain or my therapist brain.
That's amazing that you wrote a manuscript, like, so heady, like a heady manuscript, and then you ended up having an experience and wrote this beautiful, like, more of a experiential, more of a, like, heart-led book.
Yeah, it was wild. It was a very wild experience to like pull it apart and then stitch it together in a very different way. And to be totally candid, I cried most of the time rewriting it. Not because I was sad that I was rewriting it, but because of the place that I was writing it from. And that actually became a bit of a tell for me of like, okay, am I writing from my gut? Am I writing from my body? Am I writing from these depths? Or am I just writing from here and disconnecting from the rest?
Right, right, and AC points to her head, like, am I writing from here? Am I writing from my head? And so you talk a lot about embodying, and sort of that's kind of where we're gonna hang out today is, like, how to be more embodied, and um I'm curious about your tells, like, how do you know that you're a little bit more embodied, either whether it's today or whether it was when you were writing, like, how did you shift from being in your head to being more in your body?
That's a great question. I would say really I had a village of help that was kind of pieced together, we don't really live anymore in kind of village community, but there was a sense of like a therapist and a spiritual director and a friend here and the things I was learning in my counseling program over here. And I'm a dancer, so things I was experiencing in dance classes, things I was reading on my own for personal development or things I was reading for professional development that all really just really helped me start to tap into. It sounds so simple, but just the fact that like there's a body here and even just being aware and conscious of that and feeling whether it's even in the most simple way, feeling pain or feeling numbness, kind of in the way like this absence of pain. But I think there is a sense of when we tap into feeling numbness, we know what that feels like. It's not just the absence of something, right? Um, and for me, this was complex. I've lived with a lot of chronic pain since I was a kid. And so I had really tuned out from my body to try to just navigate life with so much pain in my body day to day. And there's a way that it felt like, okay, to become embodied means to feel pain, to feel things that I maybe don't want to feel. Which of course has, grown into a wider spectrum of it's not just pain that I'm feeling, but feeling other depths, other emotion, other sensation.
I love that. So I'm gonna back you up for a second because one of the things that you said, and I'm gonna come back to to pain. But one of the things you said was you were kind of like getting information from conversations, from your village, from dancing, and so sort of like there's all these people. And so this is what happens to me, and I'm guessing that it happens to me and to you. Then we're not alone. It happens to other people. Where, like, I don't slow down. Now I need to read your book, but I don't slow down enough to, like, to tune in to, like, yeah, like, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and I am always aware of, like, I think I'm missing something. Like, I think I'm missing something because I'm going too fast, and so I'm curious what that was like for you when you were, like, collecting all of that information. What was helping you slow down in order to kind of integrate the information you were receiving?
Yes. So the very honest answer is, I did not choose to slow down on my own, but had experiences in life that slowed me down whether I wanted to or not. Two of these that I talk about in the book is, I broke both of my feet. That was one thing that whether you like it or
Okay.
not, it's gonna slow you down. Um,
Like, at the same time?
yes, yes, it was, you'll have to read the book to hear the story.
Ah, okay, I'll read it for that reason. That'll
Yes.
slow me my nosy parts will be like, "Well, I'll read it for that."
Yes, but yeah, it was very much experiences like that where I was not wanting to choose to. Another was, my husband, Elijah, suffered a traumatic brain injury several years ago, and I have a number of autoimmune diseases and disorders that, as you may know, with autoimmune things, stress is not great. It makes things flare up, and, the stress of life after that became such that my body pretty much shut down at one point. Another story that I talk about in the book is a morning when I got up and I actually like physically collapsed on the floor where my body was just like, no more. We cannot and will not push through anymore. And so something that is actually really important to me for people to hear is that I did not write this book because I'm so great at slowing down or it's such a, natural easy thing for me. But it's precisely because it was such a painful, not pretty process.
Okay, so I love that because it's not like, and I've heard this before, like, we write about the stuff we either need to know or need to learn, and we write about that. That's what we write about. And so it's not like, because I think there are parts of us that think like, "Oh, I only write about the thing that I'm an expert in." Like, I'm an expert in slowing down, and so I write about slowing down because I'm an expert in that. So I love that. I think that's encouraging for people that are, like, going through stuff and maybe they wanna write or they, don't feel like they can, like, tune into that, to, like, what's happening for them. So we talked a little bit about this, just you and I, about like other things that happen in life that disconnect us from our bodies. And so I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that, about what you've seen, what you've learned, um, about things that happen, or just ways that parts of us say like, nope, like we're gonna stay up in our head. We are not gonna, like, embodying, like, no, 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 like I don't even have a body to embody.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so much there, and, I would say a great, more, comprehensive resource would be the work of Hilary McBride, which I'm a really big fan of, and I think she does a great job talking about the ways that we're disembodied and how extensive that can be. Um, I know in my experience and something I write about is in places of faith where we receive certain messages about our bodies, and messages that can be implicit, that can be explicit, but that are very strong messages and very clear messages, things of our bodies being bad, things of, um, yeah, just this emphasis on our behavior, on having, our thoughts right, and that's what's going to inform what's going on at a heart level. And, I think what's so interesting about that is, we now know with So polyvagal theory, for example, which has to do with like our nervous system and regulating what's going on when we feel stressed out or safe or overwhelmed. The communication with our body to navigate stress and overwhelm and safety, goes through a cranial nerve, and 80% of that communication goes from the body up to the brain. That's actually a conservative estimate, as you may know, that other estimates are it's more than 80%. So it's just simply not how we are wired or created, right? Whatever our views on it, that's just not how we're wired. And so I think to work with that flow of communication is crucial and necessary if we're going to work with our body, work with our parts in a process of healing, a process of formation. But then if we've been told that, well, your flesh is bad, right? If we've been given a message like that, if we've been told messages around our bodies with sexuality, with purity culture, there's so many different things where we can receive really strong messaging that is gonna create a disconnect, and then all of a sudden, when we're being encouraged to connect with our body, we're gonna have no scaffolding, right? You think about when a bridge is built, a building is built, you need to have scaffolding. You can't just build the structure. There has to be scaffolding in that, and if we have no scaffolding, and actually almost the opposite of scaffolding, barriers in the way, it's gonna feel really hopeless, to create that connection, especially in a way that feels safe.
So, if people find themselves, like, at that place, what do you suggest?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, the main things that I suggest initially is just so much compassion, so much curiosity,
Hmm.
so much, very simple witnessing and being with of like, of course this feels impossible. Of course this feels hard and messy and complex. Because I really think if those parts of us are not witnessed in that, there's gonna be confusion in anything we try to build from that point, right? And so I think validating that with kindness and also being curious, maybe checking in with parts of like, what do you want me to know about this? Because at a head level, we might have an idea of, oh, yeah, I know this thing that I heard, this message I received. It was hard in this way. But I often find so many times we can learn a lot about what's happening inside if we simply slow down and ask parts, right? Like, is there anything else you want me to know? Is there something that you want to have witnessed or realized by me?
Yeah, I love that, I love that. Um, you talk about space, and I love the idea of space and creating space. So tell me about how slowing down creates space to connect with our bodies, and then vice versa, like connecting with our bodies creates space.
So I think most simply, when we slow down, we're able to be present in a different way. The thing that comes to mind to me right now is, especially being in Scotland, and even before I was in Scotland, some of my best friends live in places that we just don't live in the same place. And so we stay in touch on Marco Polo. And, there's a difference, and I am so guilty of this, but there's a difference between slowing down and being present in a message that you're leaving someone. And for those who don't know what Marco Polo is, it's like leaving a voicemail, but you're leaving a video with it. Um, but if I am rushing around my house, getting ready for the day, trying to, leave a friend a Marco Polo, and I'm picking up the phone and dropping it down in this room, and I'm getting something in the kitchen, and then I'm getting something upstairs, and then I'm getting something in the dining room, I'm not able to really be present. Right, and that translates to real life with another human as well, right? If I'm rushing around, someone's gonna notice I'm not really able to be with them, and I think sometimes we don't consider how that applies in our own, like, existence and being, of just being present with ourself, being present with our parts, that there's gonna be this spaciousness to be present with our parts when we slow down in the same way that plays out with external relationships and external people.
I love that because I also use Marco Polo and, connect with and I usually do it in the car. So, yeah, I mean, I think my Marcos would be very different, and I was if I was actually slow and could think clearly and then could communicate clearly. But just that idea of, like, yeah, like, I'm not attending to that relationship because 'cause I'm, like, busy, busy, busy doing it in the car, and then,
Mm,
what is that if I treat my parts, if I treat my inner world the same way, which easily can happen.
mhm, yeah.
I love that.
Oh, I think even if I don't know if this resonates for you, but for me, there can be the times where if I'm really rushing around, if I'm really not slowing down, there's really not checking in happening much at all with my parts, right? In the same way that if I'm rushing around so much that I don't have time to send a Marco Polo or send a message or make a phone call, right? How is that playing out internally? Of I don't really have space to actually check in with my parts. And then to answer your second question of the vice versa, of how that might help us with, connecting with our body. I think connecting with parts in our body, those things just go hand in hand so beautifully. When we slow down and we have that spaciousness, there's just feedback we can tune in with, that we can tap into. And I think the more that we get curious about that, the more we're present with that, it's just kind of this like snowball effect, in like a positive way, a snowball that you want to get.
Yes. Um, and I love that, and I feel like this is such a new idea for me, like, as an adult, is that, like, your body is giving you information, and I have a friend that I'll be like, "This is what's going on, blah, 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 blah," and she'll say, "Okay, well, that's good information for you." I'm like, "Oh, yeah." So that's what's coming up for me is like, yeah, I don't know that I was taught or ever practiced until IFS this idea that, like, my body can teach me something and that, like, I can listen and it holds important information for me.
Yes. Yes. And how confusing is that when we've been told not to listen to our body, or we've been told our body is bad, or we've been told that our body or feelings or feedback that we get lies to us, right?
Yeah,
And even if
yeah.
we're not naming that explicitly, if that's like embedded internally, it's going to really complicate things because then how do we trust and receive feedback
Yeah,
that we're hearing?
yeah. I love that. I love that, right? The only true information is our thoughts or, like, our, like, facts that come in.
Mhm.
Hopefully we're changing that
Yes.
lie a little bit.
Yeah.
What about this idea of connecting with parts in an embodied way? Tell me about that.
I think it can sometimes be tempting to limit parts to more of this sense of like, okay, what's going on in my mind? What's going on with my thoughts? And of course, I think IFS practice well is going to include body connection and where are we feeling things in our body. So these naturally and already go together. But I think there are even greater depths. It kind of makes me think of what you said earlier of when we're really busy or rushing, like almost like, what am I missing? And that's something I'm kinda curious about with parts and connecting with the body, parts and embodiment of almost like, what am I missing when I'm maybe not going down those paths with even more curiosity of how does, this part show up in my body? Or when my body is giving me this feedback, how is that actually feedback from a very specific part of me that I've maybe never linked up before? And in a therapy session, maybe I can say, okay, this is going on with this part, and I do some work with that part, but I'm disconnecting it from the signals that that part has been sending me by means of my body, say all week or all month. And I just don't even have the neural pathways to even imagine connecting those two, together.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it can almost be like, we think that we're getting phone calls or emails from different people and realizing, oh no, this is the same person. This is actually the same person, even if they, have a different whether it feels like a different tone or nickname or, we could use different, metaphors there.
Yeah, I think I have a part that's yeah, I'm noticing the parts that are kind of kicking back to, like, why I can't slow down. Like, that's what's happening for me is I'm like, "That sounds nice." And but I'm hearing kind of buts. And so what do we do with those parts that are like, "No, we need to get this stuff done," or "We need to blah, 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 blah," or "It's scary to slow down," or "I don't wanna be in my body." Like, what do we do when we have all those parts kind of kicking back at us?
Absolutely. The 2 main things that come to mind are, I think it's a both and, like pretty much all things in life, right? Slowing down doesn't mean that we don't go to work, doesn't mean that we don't get stuff done around the house. Um, I think it's such a both and of what does it look like to live life, and even if my starting point is for 30 seconds in my day, I breathe a little bit deeper and, just kinda breathe in this spaciousness that I don't afford myself any other time. If that's our starting point, great. Slowing down doesn't have to look like it's completely radically changing everything. I think that's way too much pressure for any person. And so I think even helping parts to know that of like, we're not trying to totally mess with the system. We're saying, can we hold this? And I think also actually inviting parts of like, okay, if I'm gonna do something really small like this for 30 seconds, for a minute, whatever it might be, asking which parts want to join me. Who wants to join me in this? And whoever doesn't want to join me, you don't have to. Right. And that leads me to the second thing that came to mind for me is I think we absolutely don't force it. Right? We do not force parts or force our bodies to slow down in ways that don't feel safe yet, that don't feel comfortable, that don't feel known. And we let that process be as slow as it needs to. We let whatever safety we need to build and to foster take the time that it needs. And I think we just continuously get curious about the feedback of if we're like 6 months in and we're thinking, "Why does this part of me still not wanna slow down?" Rather than viewing that part as a problem, being curious of like, "Okay, that's really interesting. This part of me really doesn't wanna slow down," and just listening in.
Yeah, I love that because then that becomes like the part that's in the way becomes the way. So it's like, yeah, that seems like and I'm also thinking about the parts that have the agenda, like the slow down agenda, right? Like that my parts are like, okay, we're gonna slow down all the time now. It's okay. I think I'm feeling that. Like, so but there's like a polarization there. 'Cause I'm like, oh yeah, we don't have to like now be someone who like talks slow and did it. Yeah. So I'm just like, oh yeah, noticing the one with the agenda.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it's a little ironic, I think about, people who have, for example, worked with me, like the first counseling office that I worked in. I mean, you could hear when I was walking down the hallway because I was walking so fast and with, such a charge. And even if that's not the intensity with which I always walk now, I mean, I'm a very active person. I love to hike. I love to climb mountains. I love to dance. Pressing into certain spaces of slowing down, I don't think that means we have to change who we are. I think it means really like breathing life, creating spaciousness within to connect with the whole of who we are and make space for that, which does not mandate that our whole life or our whole pace needs to be slowed down, like practically moment to moment. To me, it's more of a in those times when I check in those times when I am creating that room to see what's going on internally, slowing that process down, if that makes sense.
It does. I love that. I love that. I love your book is laid out by this slow you mentioned this before, slowing down, tuning in, and tending to.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I love that idea. So I can feel this like part of me that's like, oh, I really like that. And then I hear this like, I want to do that every day. Like I kind of fear that, like, yes, do that every day. But I love that. I love that. Yeah, even as a just noticing the desire for that. Like maybe that's slow. It's just noticing the desire to slow down, tune in, and tend to.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, it just makes me think of, knowing this from both sides of the therapy room, whether therapist or client, when we oftentimes when we ask parts if they would like a break or if they would like some rest, there are so many parts that are like, "Yes, please." Not that
Yeah.
there's not
Yeah.
complications there, not that there aren't parts who, don't want to do that, but so frequently there are parts that are exhausted. They just
Yeah.
genuinely, 1, might not know it's an option to slow down. 2, they might genuinely believe it will not be okay if we slow down. So that's why it's important not to bulldoze over those parts, but it's like, what does it look like to hold this delicate tension of finding the safety that's needed to meet that longing, in a way that doesn't, almost create more havoc in our internal system, but can, bring us to I like to think of it as like muscle memory. Like, what's the muscle memory of both in terms of, like, what my body knows down to my nervous system, right? That autonomic nervous system that's navigating spaces of safety, stress, or shutdown, but then also, like, the parts of me, right? Kind of this metaphor of who's driving the car and what's their muscle memory as they're driving, and how do those things work in tandem with each other, and being really gentle with restructuring that, 'cause that takes time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea of muscle memory, that it's like that makes so much sense to me, that that's like our parts are just used to doing that, and that makes a lot of sense. Um, and it reminds me of you talk about the, like, neglected parts, because it's like, yeah, if we're just operating in muscle memory, then there are parts that get neglected. And so tell me about this, like, slowing down and being more embodied, and how that helps us, like, turn towards the parts of us that we tend to neglect.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but when I am, like, go, 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 living life, doing what I've always done, it's really easy just to, as we said, fall into that muscle memory, and there's not necessarily a lot of mindfulness of, like, what else might be going on. And also, when we are in this rhythm and in this groove, if there is something that seems to complicate that or get in the way or disrupt that rhythm, disrupt the muscle memory we know, we can often view that as an annoyance or a problem or something that's complicating our life. And so I think so oftentimes without even knowing it, without even realizing it, it's really easy for parts to get neglected if they don't really have a place in our current muscle memory. If our current muscle memory doesn't have a rhythm where we check in with those parts, where we witness those parts, where we tend to those parts, then of course they're gonna get neglected. And I think what's so sad about that is it's not necessarily coming from a place of we don't care, right? And so often it can come out of a place of we're just trying to survive. We're just trying to get through the days. Things, muscle memory that really helped us in certain seasons, whether it was a season of stress or a season of true survival, right? In a later season, it just might not be helping us in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Right, that just makes sense. And then, yeah, it just reminds me of, like, then we don't have potentially those self qualities of, like, playfulness or creativity,
Mhm.
or, I don't know, that's just what came up for me, right? Like, we're busy, 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 or even connection, right? If I'm doing my Marco Polo so fast to my mom, then there's something I'm missing, or something that, like, I'm not just in the relationship, but there's something that I'm inside missing out on.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a great point of, yeah, all the C's, and P's with IFS of I think those require spaciousness, which requires
Yeah,
a bit of
yeah,
slow. And again, that doesn't mean our lives have to go at an Elastis speed, but just having the spaces where we can slow down enough to
yeah.
not only see and witness our parts, but actually be in self
Mhm.
and live from that
Yeah.
place.
Okay, so we're going to continue our conversation over at Substack. So for people listening, if you want to hop on over to Substack, we're going to continue our chat, and talk about a couple of things over there. But before we do that, before we go, um, we would love to hear if you were doing something differently in a, and you don't have to have the talent for it. So it could be like you want to be, you don't have to have the talent for it. I'm going to find a different way of asking this question. But so you want to do something differently in your life, in your work,
Mhm.
and you don't have to have the talent or the money or any resources.
Mhm.
What would you do? Sky's the limit.
Okay. It'd probably be twofold. Um, so as I said, I'm a dancer and I do some dance right now. As I continue to age, it's harder and harder on my body. So there are so many styles of dance that I can't do. And I would just love to basically be a full-time dancer of all the styles and have my body not hurt or have the resources to, care for my body so it doesn't hurt. And then I would like to split my time from that really what the real dream is that I've never done. And this used to be a secret dream that I've started to name in front of other humans the last year or so. I really want to be a stand-up comedian. Like so badly. So badly.
Really?
Yes, I don't know why, but so many I don't even think it's one part. I think multiple parts of me, like, long for this. So,
I mean, have you ever I have so many questions. Have you ever done one of those, like, stay like, what do they call, like, where you just walk in and,
yeah.
like,
Mhm.
ever done open mics, never done
No,
an
no.
open mic.
Here's the
Okay, I
biggest
think we can I
barrier. I go to bed really early. So that's the biggest issue.
Right, right. Not I've got these problems. I'm like, "Okay, well, we can record you and we can put you on YouTube," and yeah, I've got these problems. This is really I'm really curious about the parts of you that like, what are they longing for by doing that? And do you have any jokes?
I have
Have you
friends
worked on
tell me
material?
I've had friends that you need to get a type 5 and then we'll do a little friends thing. So I don't have material. I know something I'd like to make material from. There's a neighborhood cat here who has become a friend of mine. And it's made me realize that I think this is my taste of what modern dating is like because we have a bit of a situationship. Like, I know there are other people, our relationship is not exclusive, but I don't know where I fall in the order. I don't know how many other people there are. I don't know if the others know about me. So yeah,
This is good. This is good. Is this your first live joke?
it is. It
That's
is.
good.
You're making dreams come
That's
true.
that makes me so happy. That makes me so happy. Did you say you're a type 5?
Uh,
An Enneagram 5?
I'm a 4.
You're a
Um,
4.
when I'm in
Okay,
school,
okay.
I can lean into my 5. My
Okay, yeah,
husband's a
that makes
5,
sense.
and so that's where we met in school, with that, but yeah, I think
Okay.
that I'd be leaning into 3, if I were to do stand-up, so
Yeah, but then your 4 is really helping you, like, with that uniqueness and the funniness and the, like
Mhm.
I don't know, there's something about the 4 that's gonna help
Yeah.
that. I love it. My 3 is like, "Let's do it. Let's make it happen." That's a good joke about the cat. Okay, all right, I'm getting so distracted. All right, so thank you for being on the podcast. I am gonna read your book, or at least I'm gonna hold it
I love it.
and walk around with it.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's been a joy.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you left a rating, a review, a like, comment, share with your family, your friends. That would mean so much to me. My book is available at your favorite independent bookstore or on Amazon. You can visit my website, tammysalenberger.com, or you can download a free Get to Know a Should part of you. You can follow me at IFS Tammy on Instagram and at The One Inside on Facebook and on YouTube. Jeff Schrum co-produces The One Inside, and I am forever grateful for Jeff. Also thankful for Jack Rudern for creating the music, and just thank you for listening. 6 seasons, over 1 million downloads. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you in this community. I'll see you next time.